Hey, welcome back. Today's special Shoe and Show episode is a series we're running called Behind the Design, a masterclass with Wilson W. Smith III, powered by Jones and Vining. This series goes beyond the finished product to explore what really does make great footwear: fit, comfort, and of course, performance, and the creative thinking that brings it all together. And that's exactly where Jones and Vining comes in. You know, for decades, they've partnered with the world's leading footwear brands. I mean, all of them, collaborating from product brief to design to production, ensuring perfect fit, comfort, and performance at the highest level. Across this masterclass, we're going to check in with Wilson about his iconic design career as a designer for both Nike and Jordan, the many different athletes that he's designed for that we all know and love, his strong faith in God, and what the future of design is for our industry. So with that being said, let's dive into the conversation. Hey, we're back, everybody, for another conversation with my friend Wilson. Wilson, this has been a phenomenal series for me because I thought I knew you. I knew a lot about you, but I've learned so much along this journey as we've talked about designing for some of the iconic NBA players, like Michael Jordan, Scottie come to mind, then moving to your whole life on the tennis court and what you did for Serena Williams and with Serena Williams, and how fashion kind of flipped the script and led to design and performance, to your purpose and your faith, and how that informs you about what your journey has been and where it may be leading. And now as we wrap up this series, this conversation is around kind of the future, both of design from your perspective, but also your life beyond Nike. You spent 41 years of your blood, sweat, and tears in Beaverton and pouring into an iconic global brand that we all know and love. And now you're on a new frontier, right? You're let loose, and the training wheels are off, the corporate training wheels are off. And I'm so curious to kind of unpack what you think the Lord has in store for you moving forward. And so that's the purpose of this journey, of this conversation. So walk me through when you finally decided to hang it up and you left in February of this year. What was your feeling? Like the first day you woke up in bed and you're like, I don't have to go to campus today. Like, how are you feeling about that?
Thank you, Matt. I must make a comment off of the concept of corporate training wheels. I like that. I think that to me, I just had to kind of spin off of that just for a second, because I do think that our paths is ordered to the Lord. I think there's a path that we're going through. And so in a sense, like Bible talks about, we're changing from glory to glory. I mean, that's kind of, or there's kind of like from one step to another. And so even though you may be quote unquote retiring, that's really like the beginning. It's the beginning of a blossom of a new experience. And that's for everybody. Graduation. I know that there were two people that I graduated with. It was Angela Snow, great longtime design director at Nike, and a guy named Drake Ramberg, who designed for so much of European football and just a lot of stuff what he did. So the three of us were graduating at the same time, and for each one of us, there's been an evolve of life. I mean, boy, Angela's daughter is having more kids, and now she's playing a big role there. But so we all continue to move, and I've had just a really amazing thing. In fact, for me, it's like you're saying, what was the first? You said, like, what was the first kind of feeling, or what was?
That first morning you woke up, you didn't have to report into work.
Right. Well, I had kind of had this amazing. A lot of times I think of the analogy. There was a cartoon that I used to love, and I think all of us have seen this kind of cartoon where the guy is sleepwalking on a girder, and the girder is lining up, and then all of a sudden it lines up, and he just walks across and keeps walking. Yeah. And that's kind of what this offloading has felt like. I remember I came when I was leaving Nike. I was in the Serena Williams building. That's where I was working at the time, and so I was leaving the building for the last time, and I went up to the 10th floor and I looked out over the campus, and then I took, and I even had my camera with my phone with me, and I was kind of filming around a little bit. This is after 5 p.m. So I take the elevator down and I'm kind of filming it. And I walk out and I'm going, wow, this is it. And right there, as I walk out, I run into this guy who a design friend of mine, and he's like, hey, and he immediately gave me an opportunity that has turned into a project that I have that I'm working on right now with an athlete, and that was happening when I was getting off the elevator, and I honestly have not had a chance to look at those videos I took. I did videos. Well, I just don't care. I've done videos all around the building, and I keep going, I gotta look at those one of these days, and I just haven't had a chance because I feel like there's been one step after another that's just been real exciting, and so I just kind of feel like it's been okay. What is life about right now, and what is the opportunity? There's a guy once again, I look at the Bible a lot of times for inspiration. There's a guy in the Bible named Caleb, and he's this old guy who has all this energy. I believe he was back in the era with Joshua. I think
Yep.
But Caleb, yeah, okay, Joshua, okay, he's this guy who he was like leading the charge, and he was the old guy. The older guy, but he had that kind of energy, and I find Caleb to be inspirational because there's no reason why I need to go and sit down. I mean, at this point, I really see it as an opportunity to now dimensionalize the story. I think at this place, like you're saying, kind of the taking off the corporate training wheels. I have an opportunity to let my story become something of inspiration for the next generation. So that's really what I'm most interested in is how can I share this, because I want other people to feel empowered and to not be concerned about where they find themselves on God's path, where they find themselves in the thing that they're choosing to do, because I just believe that there's great opportunities, and just to follow that direction, follow your heart and follow that direction that someone has. So that's happened for me. My interest is to really inspire others to find their paths and to hopefully empower. One of the things that I love to do, I think I think that encouragement, quote unquote, is one of the gifts that I think I want to give to others, and that's my primary desire. And because I do believe that there is real power in every individual's vision and thoughts and where they're choosing to go. And there's real power in that. And I want to encourage that, and I want to help them in whatever way I can to be able to discover just what is the opportunity in what they're pursuing. And so that's kind of the biggest passion that I probably have.
Well, let me ask you this, Wilson. Let's say you're sitting across, and this may have already happened. So if it has, let me know. But if you're sitting across from a young aspiring designer, and it's kind of the clash of two worlds, right? You have the established iconic designer who literally started in the Reagan administration at Nike and was writing next on a piece of paper next to his bed, or on everything was like analog.
Right.
Now to a young designer who's facing a digital world, digital design, CADs programs, et cetera, along with AI and technology.
Yep.
What's your encouragement to them as they want to be successful in what I think is a really inauthentic age, right? You're trying to bring authenticity in a very inauthentic age with technology. Like, what would your encouragement be?
Right. The interesting thing about technology is that technology technology's superpower is speed, and kind of our human superpower are things like empathy, diversity. There's a lot of superpowers that human beings have that trumps any technological superpower, which is just getting you to the answer faster. I mean, one time I read the back in the 40s was when they released the ballpoint pen, and that with as much trepidation as computers. I mean, people were like, a ballpoint pen? You mean I'm no longer dipping in the quill? I mean, what is going on? So anyway, that was the big challenge. Honestly, that's, of course, AI and everything is a little more a little more detailed than that, but it does not rule the thing. What I get to realize is, what things do I share in common with today's designers? I may not understand the latest programs to the degree that they are working with them, but there are some agreements that we all need to come to. One of them, for example, I'll give a shout out to Larry Miller, who was the he was actually the president of the Jordan brand when I first came into the Jordan brand, and that would have been back in 1997, and we were kind of in a transition then, more towards starting to email and starting to kind of really get into our computers and starting to do some things. And so now we brought people from all around the campus to establish this Jordan brand, and we were on the top floor of the Jerry Rice building, which is actually almost like two buildings next to each other. So the top floor was really long. And so the Jordan brand expand across both wings of the Jerry Rice building. And so at the time, Larry Miller got us all together, and he was talking to us as a brand, and we had, 60 people, maybe more. But anyway, so he's talking to us, and he said, hey, he says one thing, he says, I know it's exciting what's going on with technology, what we're doing, and boy, we can get messages out so quick, and we can do whatever. He said, but if you're sitting down here and you're got a lot to do, and you just and you're just going to send that note to the person who's sitting down on the other end of the room. He said, on the other end of the building, he says, I want you to get up from your seat and walk down to that person and talk to them face to face. And I don't want you to send that email. I want you to make that face to face connection. And I tell you, that stuck with me. That's one of those common sense, rudimentary, strong points, because the thing where I think we struggle in our culture, arguably as much as being left and right and whatever is some of our hurdles of actually getting on the same page. But I think we struggle because of the method of the way we communicate. I think we've chose to communicate typing. We've chose to text is kind of the center of our quick notes, because you can send that stuff out, and you get your point across, and the person can respond when they want you to get their point across. So everything's like that. And then, IG or FB or different ways of communicating is all like this. And everybody's kind of in their world doing that. And I remember hearing once or seeing once that when you are typing, you are communicating at about a 7% of communication. You're actually making a connection of about 7% level. If you're going to get on a telephone, it's about 42%, 42 to 44%. So you're making more of a voice connection. You're making inflection. An awesome podcast like this, or perhaps a Zoom call. I mean, you get to about 65%. But if you're going to really connect to people, you need to be face to face. That's
have a dinner.
That's 100% of communication. And I would argue that we struggle because we don't have time for 100% communication that much. And we end up, circling the tree, 50 times more than you need to. That would just happen if you would just get together in the room with somebody. So it's simple things like that I think I can talk to people about, to help, to hopefully, what is that, as technology gets more advanced, a lot of times you may lose some of the quality that was there before. So you gotta just see what qualities are you losing, which you got to kind of pay attention to it, and don't just assume that the tech's going to get you in a better place. Look at the music industry, and I'm not gonna go too deep, but it's like the music industry, for example. I think we who grew up on singles and albums and stuff that was happening back in the late 50s, 60s, 70s. There was a quality to the music that would come across in an album, and the experience of getting an album cover, and you're studying the artist, and you're reading
liner notes and
all the notes, and you're reading the lyrics of like 12 songs. Well, now we're all about genre, and we click on something, and technology has us to where capture a bunch of things that kind of sound like it, and we have the attention span of maybe one song, and we don't really fully get to go that deep. And then not only that, the sound is arguably not as well as reproduced on an album. So technology is an interesting advance. Sometimes it doesn't really advance, and so we have to be careful. Where can you go analog? Where do you go analog? And do you want to keep sketching? Yeah, I think you want to keep sketching with a pen, but don't just go straight to the computer. I think there's got to be a place where you get that vision, that click, that prayer of design, where you feel you've connected to a sketch that was almost divine, and you're like going, "Hey, that's it." And then you can put that into your computer, and you can try to reproduce that, and that's, and at this point, that I still think that we don't quite sketch as well on the computer, because your brain to the visual connection is a little bit of a disconnect. I mean,
a little delay.
Yeah, a little bit of a delay. And so you can, so anyway, so I still, and now I'm feeling like an old guy, but I still value the opportunity of, say, sketching, or the opportunity of, like, sometime writing what you're feeling,
I agree with that. Hey, pardon the interruption, but I just want to remind you that this special series, Behind the Design, is powered by our friends at Jones & Vining. They're a trusted partner to footwear brands for materials, engineering, and innovation. You can learn more at jonesandvining.com. That is jonesandvining.com. Wilson, and I will say that during the COVID era, when companies were debating going back to the office, it was the design community within our member companies and the product development folks who were like, we got to be together in person. We got to be sitting around that table looking at samples and materials and prototypes. And there's an irony to that. We're more connected in this world than ever. And we're so very lonely. And that's to your exact point. You can't live on 7% communication diet with all your connections. You need 100%, as much as you can make time for. And so your encouragement is so critically apropos to this time.
Not to interrupt you, Mac, say yes, because what you're saying is great stuff. That's inspiring thoughts. One of the challenges with not being in the room, together, you even can't, it's hard to even say, share something that's negative. It's easier to stay positive. And the challenge is, at Nike, we had a history where Mr. Knight and others, they used to have what they called butt face meetings. And so basically they would get in each other's face, and they would basically, say stuff that came out, and it doesn't matter because you would leave it in the room, but you would get in someone's face, and you could do it because there was trust around the table. You can't do that on an email. You cannot do that. If you want to text or fax or anything that's negative, you have to, in order to give it the right context, you have to put beautiful stuff around it,
massage all around it,
all around it, and then maybe say, could you change that gray a little bit darker? I mean, honestly, and if you're in the same room, you just have a conversation, and then you say, no, that's gray's not going to work for that consumer, and you can tell when I'm looking at you that I still love you, but that's not the point. You can't tell that when you're looking at a text. Right?
So you can't hear the inflection in the voice. That's so true, Wilson. That's so true.
Yeah, it's huge.
All right, so I want to do something to kind of close out this entire series that we have done at our dinner table over the years. My wife and I, we have 3 girls, and at the dinner table, we have this saying, high, low, and buffalo, right? The high of the day, something you learn. The low, something that didn't go right. And the buffalo, something kind of was weird or you weren't expecting, or where God surprised you in some way. And so your career, 41 years, can you give me a 1 high, 1 low, and they're not exclusive, and then 1 buffalo? Walk me through that.
Wow. 1 high, 1 low. Well, a high, looking back on it, is to say how much I'm surprised by God's leading, how much that's really worked out. I mean, and maybe I talked about some of these themes earlier, but how much, say, stepping into the Jordan brand or choosing tennis over basketball or stepping back into tennis after the Jordan brand exploded, or being called into DNA after being on the design leadership team. Suddenly I'm going to work in the archives, and how much each one of those steps became a high. It felt like I was stepping down and letting God and letting the company and letting Nike and letting the expanse of the opportunity take me to another level. Because no matter where you are, you've got to be able to look like a good value to your employer. And if you're here and you're really super aspirational for this, the best thing I think you can do is come in at this level and move up to that. And so that's the opportunity, I think, in life. And so that would be the high, is realizing that this goes to this, and then God and other things takes you up to the next level. So I think that's a little abstract, but I would say that would be.
I'm tracking the abstract.
Track the abstract. Thank you, because I could certainly talk about all the fabulous athletes I work with, but that's one thing. A high, a low. Well, low. Maybe I'll get specific with a design challenge. At one point in time, I was working on a product for Pete Sampras and work on a shoe for him, and I was, there was a real big. What would I say? A big push from the company for a certain type of technology in the shoe, but it was a little, maybe not the right technology for tennis, and it maybe even put his foot a little bit not in the best position for the game of tennis, where you're really low to the ground. And Tinker was really talking to me about, hey, I don't think this is where you need to go. But I was getting a lot of pressure from the highest places in Nike to do this. And so I went ahead and designed this thing. And Pete gets out there, plays. He actually, at one point in time, he ends up not being that happy about the shoe because he slipped around in it in some weird ways, which he felt was not working for him. So he's like, okay, until you get the shoe right, I'm not going to wear it. And so it was a real wow moment. And then it took at least a couple years to bring Pete around. And I went through so much. I was thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done with with the greatest athlete on the planet? And Pete's a great guy, and he was willing to work with us, but we had to then work with him, and we really had to listen to the voice of the athlete. And so sometimes you've got to be bold. You've got to be willing to even fight back a little bit if there's like a corporate push from those around you to do something that maybe isn't the most ideal thing for that end user. And if you're doing something for an end user, you need to really keep them in mind and do what they need. And so that was that was a low. And in some ways, Tinker came in and designed a shoe for Pete that Pete ended up loving and bailed me out. So that was cool. But so that to me was probably one of my more specific lows.
That sounds stressful for sure. I can imagine. I'm a people pleaser by nature. That pressure, I would have struggled with that too. So I appreciate you sharing that low, which takes us last but not least to the Buffalo. Was there something like totally wacky out of the blue you just weren't anticipating about your career?
Well, I would say the first Buffalo I think of was that I would become a shoe designer, and then I would have an opportunity to talk to you and talk to the world about life and about choices. That's a major Buffalo. I would have had no idea that any of this would ever have amounted to this opportunity. I mean, to have been an architect that came into a company, and then they're like, how would you like to design shoes, when they were going through a layoff, and I'm going, oh, wow. I've always wanted to do that. And then to be driving home feeling like my career has just gone into the toilet. It was just the end of my, the end of my path. But then that Buffalo has flipped the script to where now I have a voice to encourage, and I have a voice to hopefully tell people to be faithful in what you got to do today and what you got to do in your long run, and just trust that really cool things will happen, and your path will be ordered of the Lord, and there's an opportunity to where you're leading and where you're going. So just no matter what your circumstances, to be able to see that, and just to be able to trust that. So I think that's a Buffalo for me.
I love that. I have one last question, and it's about this houses for feet thing. This whole
homes for the feet.
Does that make the Chuck Taylor like the mid-century modern option for your foot? Like I'm trying to like take a house trend and attach it to a footwear trend, and I don't know.
I'm sure that in that era it was mid-century modern. That was about when Chuck was being designed,
right?
So that's
saying.
That's interesting. Yet when we look at Chuck Taylor now, it doesn't. I would say mid-century modern would be some of the '90s crazy stuff. It's interesting. We were looking at shoe design, just kind of looking at the different eras, and as shoes were going into the 2000s, there's kind of this era when shoes were being designed in 1998 and 99, and you're going that are going to be released in 2001 or 2000, because of the year 2000 was looming. It's like, wow, we're crossing into a new century.
Millennium.
Yeah, we're millennium. All the millennium. So many shoes. If you look at them, so many shoes back then had an alternative closure system, like lace covers or straps, or just monkey paw, some of the stuff that was going on with Gary Payton shoes, and everything zipping up, and it was everywhere all the time. And it's funny when you kind of look at this 99, 2000, 2001, and then you go back to 03, 04 on to the day, and you have a sea of laces again. But it was kind of, so to me, that to me is kind of the mid-century modern of anticipation of the future, and that was what was the energy of that era. But just what would I say? Just kind of trust some of that tried and true stuff isn't too bad either. So just, learn from your history.
Learn from your history, indeed. Well, your history, Wilson, is phenomenal. I've learned so much. I've tried to listen. That was the theme when we started this, that as a designer, you go in and listen. Jordan was listening. You were listening. I've been listening. Thank you, Wilson, for just kind of unveiling your life and these really cool anecdotes for our listeners and our viewers. And I really appreciate it. And I appreciate our friendship. And thanks for coming on and being a part of this.
Hey, super honored. Thank you so much. And I just hope and pray that people who hear things hopefully can take a nugget and propel you to much greater things than I could have ever done. So you go for it.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us on the special Shoe and Show episode of Behind the Design, a masterclass with Wilson W. Smith III, all powered by Jones & Vining. Throughout this series, we're pulling back the curtain of what it really takes to create great footwear, from creative storytelling to fundamentals of fit, comfort, and performance. And Jones & Vining plays a vital role in that journey. They work behind the scenes to help tons of different brands deliver footwear that looks great, feels right, and performs where it matters most. To learn more about Jones & Vining and how they support footwear innovation from concept to consumer, visit jonesandvining.com. That's jonesandvining.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.